Welcome to An Honorable Profession, a podcast giving America hope since 2018. I'm Ryan Coonerty. Along with Debbie Cox Bolton of the New Deal, I'm lucky enough to be your co-host. An Honorable Profession is a New Deal Leaders podcast. The New Deal is an organization that supports the next generation of American leaders. From attorneys generals to state senators to mayors to school board members, these are the people that are pushing policies and politics that will respond to climate change, rebuild our economy, address racial injustice, and restore our democracy. These are incredibly talented people who have dedicated themselves to public service when their country and their communities needed it the most. Check out newdealleaders.org to see what I'm talking about. For decades, West Virginia was a Democratic stronghold. Then 10 years ago, the Republicans took over and turned the state dark red. Now, out of 100 seats in the state legislature, the Democrats only control 9. Today, I talk with one of those 9, Delegate Kayla Young. She's a former food truck owner, an environmental advocate, and granddaughter of a coal miner, who's doing everything she can to serve her constituents and rebuild the Democratic majority. She pulls no punches on where the National Democratic Party is failing to win over her voters and how we can do more to rebuild the West Virginia economy. Listen to hear from a dynamic leader who's all in on building a brighter future. Enjoy. Delegate Kayla Young, welcome to An Honorable Profession.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm happy to be here.
I got to say, you're our only current New Deal leader from West Virginia, and it's not because we don't love your state, but it's becoming increasingly harder to find Democrats in West Virginia. Can you talk us through a little bit about the progression politically of your state and where things are and where things might be going?
Yeah, so things are, I hope, at rock bottom for Democrats in West Virginia. Lots of people think about West Virginia and they either think of Joe Manchin or they think we're like a really, really red state. And the reality is we've only been a red state since 2014. So we're 10 years into this. We were a blue state almost entirely for our entire history since we became a state during the Civil War up until 2014 when the Republicans took over. And since then, we went from having one Republican in our state Senate to now only having 2 Democrats in the state Senate. I'm in the state House. Out of 100 members, there are 91 Republicans, 9 Democrats. I'm fairly certain it's the smallest minority in the country in terms of numbers. So it's not a great place to be right now. And we've lost all Democrats at the federal level. So we're kind of the leaders of our state party.
Can you talk a little bit about how we got here and what lessons could be learned for other states that are transitioning one way or another that they may want to listen to, the national party should listen to from your state?
Yeah, so I think we all kind of have different answers on kind of how we got here, but my answer that I think what happened was I think it was Obama, and I don't think West Virginia was ready for Obama. I think he's great, but I don't think West Virginia was ready for him in the sense that he's Black, and we have a very small Black population in West Virginia. There's still a lot of racism here. We're still in the South. So that's still happening. And then the war on coal really set in here. So I think those two things really kind of just flipped West Virginia on its head almost entirely. And we're so energy dependent that it's really been volatile for our economy. And honestly, National Democrats, we're very different, I would say, than National Democrats. And Democrats kind of rested on their laurels here in West Virginia for a very long time. We didn't build a bench. We didn't write down strategy. So we're kind of starting over.
Can you talk about, I think the Biden administration made a lot of investments in states and in the energy economy and transition. How did that resonate or not resonate? And then we've now 7 or 8 months into the Trump administration. And how are those policies resonating?
It's a mixed bag. So folks loved they hated Biden in West Virginia, but they loved all the jobs announcements. We had a lot. We had a big battery factory come in, several battery factories come in. It's wild. We had like an all Republican administration. Our former governor owned coal companies himself. He's now our U.S. Senator Jim Justice. So like very very big coal money. But he would always get up and tout all of our clean energy jobs, and they wouldn't really say that. They'd say all of the above energy, which I agree with, but they wouldn't ever talk about it being green. They wouldn't, they hate the Green New Deal, that, the same old playbook that we see everywhere. But with Trump coming in, we're still losing jobs by the thousands. Coal mining is still going down. I think we've had like 1,500 coal layoffs this year. There's like 8,000 coal miners left in the state of West Virginia. It's really unfortunate. So these policies are hitting us hard. I mean, with all the clawbacks that Trump's done, I think we lost over $100 million in solar for folks, and our utility bills are through the roof. So they're hitting hard.
You're the daughter of a coal miner and a teacher. And so talk to me a little bit about, because it's such a specific industry and there's some mythology around it, but there's also real life economic impact. Can you talk a little bit about first of all, your own path, but then how should we all be thinking about coal as part of energy strategy or not, and the real world and political impacts of that?
Yeah, so I think it's really easy for folks outside of coal producing places to really vilify coal, but we have to remember that coal built our country. You need coal to make steel, you need coal to build railroads, you need coal for all of those things. Metallurgical coal, thermal coal is for energy. So two different kinds. We still have met coal. Thermal coal is the one on the decline because we need clean energy sources. So yeah, granddaughter of a coal miner. Lots of Union blood in my family, and that's West Virginia's history. Honestly, we had the Battle of Blair Mountain. They wore the red bandanas around their neck. The United States government dropped bombs on people that were trying to keep their jobs. It's been wild, and then we've seen labor just like pretty much decimated since then. So I think that folks outside of here and outside of energy producing states are really quick to villainize what we do, but like we really need to transition. Like, I don't know that a lot of folks know that coal miners weren't paid in money. They were paid in script. It was almost like monopoly money. And so they were almost like indentured servants where they couldn't get out, they couldn't leave. And so those companies really like made a bunch of money and then they left. And these communities have just been decimated, and the jobs haven't been replaced. It's really sad. We've got so many ghost towns now. We're trying to figure out what to do.
So what can be done? And I recognize it's incredibly hard when you have 9 folks out of 100. So you're not going to be driving any policy, but in a perfect world, what does that transition or what do the opportunities look like?
That's what we're trying to figure out. One of the things that we're working on, one of the things I did get done my second year in the legislature was repealing the ban on nuclear energy. And unlike a lot of states, we had a ban on nuclear energy, not because people were afraid of it, not because they didn't want it, but the coal industry were the ones who put the ban in because they didn't want any competition, right? And so they said, we need to ban nuclear energy. This is bad. And people watched The Simpsons and agreed with them. And so one of the first things I did in office was repeal that ban so we can continue to be an energy producing state. That's something West Virginians are really, really proud of. And so I hope that we can do that. And those jobs pay a lot. They're not volatile like coal jobs. The coal industry has tons of layoffs. It's very up, and when it's up, it's great and it's good. But when it's down, it's bad. And that's terrible for state revenue, right? You can't depend on it at all. And that's kind of where we get all of our money from for the most part. And so we've really got to just find less volatile industries. We're starting to lean into manufacturing. We have Nucor Steel coming. It's like a $2 billion investment. So that's going to be really good. But we're just trying to figure it out, really.
How have the Trump policies, the tariffs, and other things impacted positively or negatively the industry and job creation in your state?
So, I mean, I think like everywhere else, it's hitting everybody. It's hitting everybody's cost of living. dramatically. I don't know anybody who thinks that it's like easy to get by right now for anything. You think about going to the grocery store, you buy 2 bags of groceries, you can't spend less than $50. Honestly, it's wild. And then you walk out and you don't even know what you bought, right? So I think it's impacting everybody. We have a new governor this last year in West Virginia who was our former Attorney General, Patrick Morrisey. He is not very focused on economic development at all. So it's a big change. Our last administration, we had a lot of corporate giveaways, a lot of handouts to companies to come because honestly, economic development in this country has kind of been a race to the bottom of like who's willing to give up the most. And what do? I mean, you kind of just have to play the game if you want jobs to come. And so that's what we've been doing. So those are starting to pan out. But with our new leadership, I don't know what's going to happen. So we just try to drive policies, make sure jobs are going to West Virginians first, always, not out of staters, because most of these we're a border state. We have lots of lots of towns on the border, and a lot of these jobs are going to people from out of town. And so we got to make sure that we're putting West Virginians first.
Can you tell us how you got to the place you're at, being in the legislature and, public service and then also sort of how you keep going when the numbers are so against you?
Yeah. So I would say, like most of these interviews you guys do, it was a windy path, and I did not really expect to be here. I've always been interested in politics. I represent the area that I grew up in, which is really an honor. I did not expect to even live in West Virginia after I graduated high school because there wasn't a ton of opportunity. I went to college here and then I left as fast as I could. And I lived around the world for a little while. I got pregnant when I was living in California, realized I could not afford childcare or housing in Northern California. Moved back to West Virginia, realized I couldn't really afford childcare here either because it's just broken as a system, but I have family here. And so I decided to raise my kids here. It's safe, it's beautiful, the people are wonderful here. So I had my kids here. When my son was 2 days old, we had a water crisis in Charleston, West Virginia. He was born in a blizzard, so that was crazy enough. And then we couldn't drink the water. We had no access to drinking water for 4 weeks. And I had a 3-day-old baby at the time. It was terrifying. Turns out it was because there was a coal cleaning chemical that was stored next to the river that was leaking into the river. It was our only drinking water intake. The tanks weren't regulated at all. And 400,000 people lost drinking water for a month. It was awful. And so I got interested in advocacy at that point. And then my daughter was born a year later. Trump was elected right after that. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do something. Like, my daughter can't live in a world with less rights than I have. I was terrified about it. And so kind of got involved in advocacy. I used to run a food truck, and I'm a chef by trade. And so I would have my food truck 3/4 of the year. And then the other in the winter, when you can't go out and sell food because there aren't really events going on, I got a lobbying job at the Capitol and lobbied for not your fancy high-powered lobbyist. I lobbied for the Environmental Council. So going up against coal, going up against natural gas here in West Virginia. I got pretty used to losing, but honestly had some wins. And so then I realized I looked at my own representatives, didn't quite love the representation I was getting, realized anybody can do this, and turns out they do. Sometimes I feel like people, when you sit in a committee meeting, you're like, wait a minute, this is what this is? You don't really, get from point A to point B or really realize the minutia of it all. So I learned the process really, really well. And then was like, wait, why? The people aren't doing what I want them to do. I'm going to run for office. I'm going to do it. And so I ran for the first time in 2020, announced in 2019. So it was before the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit, the primary election got pushed back. I was in a multi-member district at the time, which it was a 4-member district. For multi-member districts favor women, they favor first-time candidates, they favor people of color. They're great. And you can kind of run for yourself, kind of like in ranked choice voting, where you're not really running against somebody else. So it really makes it a better experience because you don't just have to like be negative about somebody. You can just say, well, here's what I want to do, and tell people to vote for you. So it was a great environment to run in for the first time. Got elected in 2020. I thought I was going into a caucus that had about 40 some people in it. And that night the caucus went to 23. So we immediately went into the super minority, where it was almost split, and we went into the super minority then. So I've always been in at least the super minority. Now the numbers are so bad that there's like nothing that we can even do procedurally. So it is rough, but I have a lot of hope that this is rock bottom and that we can make a lot of gains, because with their numbers being so high, there's so much infighting. And I just find ways to help my constituents.
There's so many pieces I want to get into, but first I want to start. We've had a lot of small business owners on this podcast. I don't think we ever had anyone who ran a food truck.
Yeah.
So, how did that prepare you for, or not prepare you for the legislature? And B, what can Democrats do better to help these sort of micro enterprises, where there's real innovation and community building and economic opportunity that can be created?
1,000,000%. Okay, so I was an egg roll food truck called Eggs Will Roll. We only make gourmet egg rolls, not Chinese egg rolls, because they're perfect and you can't touch them. So think like jambalaya, Philly cheesesteak, all the Thanksgiving was probably the most popular one. Pepperoni roll, because we're in West Virginia, of course. So yeah, it was fun getting into the legislature. It prepared me because working in food service and working in kitchens is the hardest work you will probably ever do. It is honest work. Customer service is so important, just like it's serving your constituents is very important. Having to be quick, having to be on your feet, make decisions, do a lot of things at one time, have great time management skills. I think if anybody has the chance, you should always work in retail and work in food service. Just you should have to do that to like graduate high school, honestly, just to like it's great life experience. And I love it. And I love the second question, because we are doing so little to help small businesses. And these are really the businesses that at the end of the day that make or break cities. They make or break cities and towns and communities and give people quality of life. And like younger people, that's what they care about. They don't look at what the tax structure is when they think about where they're going to move. They look at like, do I feel comfortable here? Is there stuff to do? Is it cool? Stuff, that's more what I think people are paying attention to. And also helping those businesses is so much easier. The threshold is so much lower. It's as easy as like helping a small business that has 5 or 6 employees access paid leave or childcare, something that they can't do on their own because it's way too expensive. But we could provide so many grants, so many resources to small business owners. We did something and I just did it through helping folks at the city of like helping my local towns create like small business coordinators that just kind of like help small businesses exist and get through the process. Because lots of people want to start small businesses, but they just don't know what to do, and the bar to entry is usually pretty low. So I think we need to do a lot more for our small business owners, because they really are the heart and soul.
Couldn't agree more. I'm the son of a independent bookstore owner, so
Oh, yeah.
I am all about yeah, and that it should be a cornerstone of the Democratic Party that if you have an idea and you want to create a business that creates a few jobs, we're going to be there for you. And unfortunately, like we just aren't moving fast enough and
Yeah.
reducing some
The
of the
American
barriers.
dream, right?
Yeah.
What you want to do?
Let me ask you about your winter job when you were working for environmental
Yeah.
organization. And so this is, I mean, from the outside, this is something when you look at West Virginia and you hear that there's contaminated water and people don't have fresh water, or there's,
Yep.
there's all kinds of environmental waterways that have been destroyed and everything else. And to think that there should be a path where people can have a safe, clean environment and an economic structure. And again, it feels like the Democrats have ceded that argument that
Yep.
the two are not compatible. How did you make that case? How do you believe that we could make a better case and try to start to win people back?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a false dichotomy that's set up for us, whether you can pick clean drinking water or you can pick jobs. And that's just not true. We don't have clean drinking water because we allow chemical manufacturers to dump chemicals into the water. I don't know if you've seen the movie, I think it's called Dark Waters, where Dow was making Teflon here in West Virginia and they were dumping all the chemicals into the water. I know a woman who was a swimmer and she lost her leg because of it. And it altered her life completely because she was swimming in water that was full of C8. And so it doesn't have to be between jobs and clean, safe water. We can do both. We just have to make sure the companies aren't doing these things, and we don't have to lay down and like let them do them, right? It's not okay. And we should all band together across the country to say it's not okay. We deserve to have a clean environment. We should all be able to agree that we need clean drinking water as a baseline.
Seems reasonable.
Right. Right.
Hard to imagine that we're arguing against it, but we are.
Yeah.
So you mentioned at the top that you think maybe the Democrats are at rock bottom and now we start building from here. What programs or things you're hearing on the ground? What gives you hope that 9's going to go to 15, which will go to 22, which will eventually work its way back up?
I mean, I think in my state, the reality is like we're the only ones ever talking about anything. You don't see, just like with the feds, you don't see our Republicans getting out and having town halls. They're not doing listening tours. They're not doing anything like that. Even in the committee and on the floor of the legislature, they're not even speaking typically. They just sit there and do what they're told. They do exactly what they're told. They fall in line. I have to imagine there's going to be a world where we get past Trump. And privately, a lot of them will say like, oh, I don't like this. And it's like, well, then why are you doing it? And they're like, because they're going to take away my parking spot, or they're not going to run my bill or whatever. And it's like, nobody's the boss of me. Who cares? It's crazy to me that these people are just like, they work so hard to get into office and to represent their communities. And then they just like take it lying down. We can't do that. I think we actually have to fight back, and we have to have good ideas that put working people first. I think for a long time, we've like tried to say the right thing that people want to hear rather than kind of what we need to hear, which in my opinion is that a lot of these systems that Trump is saying are broken actually are broken. I don't like how he's putting them back together, or lack thereof, letting them just not exist anymore. But the reality is like, the government is not working well for people. We have so many people that like kids that don't eat on a regular basis. That is not a functioning society in my sense of the word. If you have hungry kids and you are the richest nation on earth, you are doing something wrong.
I couldn't agree more. How do you think about you personally, how you spend your time, in terms of you got a family, you're trying to keep everything going, and you're serving this legislature and trying to essentially build from the bottom up. What's next for you? How do you think about when the legislature is a good use of your time, and when it may be time for someone else to pick up the mantle?
Yeah, that's a tough thing that I think a lot of people don't do a good job of doing, right? I mean, look at Congress. We've had how many people die in office this year? No one should be dying at their job. For any reason at all, especially old age.
Yeah.
First and foremost, especially old age. So we've got to start to pass the baton. And in West Virginia, we didn't do that. We didn't do that for decades and decades. And now we're realizing that we don't have a bench. We don't have strong candidates for federal offices, and they lean on those of us that are in office. But if we leave these seats, we got to have folks to fill them, And so it's a game of musical chairs that we're really trying to figure out. I hope I'll know when it's time to go, and if not, I hope I have friends that are like are willing to be honest enough to tell me that it's time to go. But I think I'll know. I don't really know what I want to be when I grow up, other than this kind of, So I never thought about wanting to run for higher office. But honestly, there's a lot of problems that I want to fix. I got really involved in Build Back Better, specifically working on childcare and paid leave. And like, those are issues that I want fixed as a state, as a country. We know the solutions. We just need to have the wherewithal and the values to implement them. And so like, I don't know that I'll be done until those things are solved. And hopefully they'll be solved in my lifetime. I don't know. But I spend my time, other than raising my family and being in the legislature, I spend a lot of time on social media trying to educate people about how government works, because I have found that a lot of people, no matter what age they are, have no clue how the government works at all. They don't know anything about the state legislature. I focus specifically on the state legislature because people people will read a headline, realize there's a crisis, and by that point, it's way too late to do anything about it. So I'm trying to teach people, honestly, from a fairly nonpartisan viewpoint, even though I realize I'm a Democrat elected official, I try to say, here's my point of view, here's theirs point of view, here's what's going on. I try to tell people how entertaining it is, honestly, because it's like, it's crazier than the Real Housewives. Like the drama never stops. So it's like, no matter what you're looking for, you're going to find it paying attention to the state legislature. So I try to just teach people how it works, because I have found a lot of people have a lot of shame about not knowing how it works. So when people explain issues to me, I'm like, tell this to me like I'm 5 years old, please. Because being in the state legislature, you have to know a little bit about everything, and you just can't. So we have to like realize our humility and be like, okay, I don't know this. I need to find a trusted source. And I think that's also how we rebuild, is we be that trusted source.
I like that strategy a lot. Can you, give some advice to, you're a voter in a red state, you don't love what's going on, you think you might want to run. How do you start? Do you start by just trying to educate folks? Do you start by listening? You start by what's your playbook for getting involved?
So I think you start by figuring out what your best skills are and where you want to be, whether that's you want to be out in front, whether you want to be behind the scenes. If you don't want to be out in front, maybe that means that you actually should be out in front, because that's a good thing too, right? And if people have asked you to run, you should really consider that a compliment and take that pretty seriously. Or if you think you'd be good, you should also take that seriously. I think talking to folks who are in elected office is a great starting point to get the reality of what it's like. Because when people are like, I want to run for office, is it great? And I'm like, no, not great. It's really hard. I love it, but like, I'm going to be completely honest. Like, this is not a walk in the park, and it's not easy. So we just have to meet people where they are and be honest with them, but also tell them that, like, I've really had to learn how to redefine wins. I had to do that when I was lobbying, and now I have to do that while I'm elected. You're not going to win at the end of the day. When it's 91-9, winning looks very, very different. Winning can be stopping something that's really bad. Winning can be passing something it could also be like making something that's really bad a little bit less bad, right? And so like a lot of those things don't come across very well, or you can't communicate them because they're really inside baseball, but it's really about redefining wins and also making incremental change. I know we all hate incremental change, but when things are as bad as they are for us as a country and for us in my state, you got to take what you can get and, be willing to not let perfection get in the way of progress.
I love that. We need more people like you in West Virginia, in the United States, in the New Deal for sure. Thank you for joining us today, and thanks for battling it out. And we can't wait to hear what you're doing in West Virginia, and also get some more New Deal leaders from your state and start to build an army.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is great.
An Honorable Profession is a New Deal Leaders podcast. Thanks to the team at New Deal for producing this episode. We encourage you to bring honor to public service, and because we keep things honorable, no tax dollars are used in the making of this podcast.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group.